tell you what, I like Tristan Jarry. I believe in him. I am still going to say comfortably that the team should extend him long term. But dude, you know, good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also happen to record daily shots of Steelers and Pirates every day that I hope you'll check out. Penguins are taking on the Maple Leafs tonight at PPG Paints Arena. That's a 7:08 p.m. puck drop. Lots of Canadians always coming down for that game. Happened to run into a few downtown myself just yesterday. Nice to have them. Nicer still when the Leafs lose. I'm just one of those guys. I can't resist picking on those fans, including the ones who stopped by our downtown HQ shop yesterday. It's just way too easy and way too delightful. But the home team tonight is going to have much more serious endeavors at hand. They need to get straightened out at the position that matters the most. And by the time the playoffs were to come around, presuming that the playoffs do come around, and yes, I'm saying that position is going to have to be not just the most important, but the one at which the Penguins are best equipped to succeed. More so than the forwards, more so than the defensemen. I've been saying that steadily through the summer. This team will break its first-round streak of failure only if Tristan Jarry pushes them through. Now, Jarry's got, right now, a 3.55 goals against average and a .900 save percentage, both of which are in the bottom quarter of the league and plunging every time he takes the ice. He did acknowledge to reporters after giving up 5 goals Saturday night in Montreal that he's been playing through some stuff. He's been banged up a little bit. It's affecting him. Not the sort of thing you usually hear from any hockey player, let alone the goaltender, but there it was. Okay, you weren't about to start Casey DeSmith for the third time in 4 nights. I don't blame Mike Sullivan for not using DeSmith. I do wonder to what extent Jarry is feeling something or afflicted by something. Not to doubt his integrity or whether or not he's hurt, but more looking at whether or not he should just kind of recuse himself and let the Penguins bring up somebody from the minors, Dustin Tokarski. No, I'm not being an idiot suggesting Tokarski would be any kind of upgrade. I'm talking about a short-term maintenance thing. If Jarry is playing at, 60, 70%, and he's not healing right, give him a chance to heal right. Maybe the guy comes up from the minors and steals you a game or whatever, but the more important thing is that Jarry, again, gets right. This portion of Daily Shot of Penguins is brought to you by the good people at the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank, where they're committed to providing food for all of our neighbors in need across Western Pennsylvania. They, in turn, need your help. Find out how $1 can be turned into 5 full meals. For those in need, visit pittsburghfoodbank.org. I liked some of what I saw of Jarry early this season. I don't know, because this is the kind of thing that you can't know when covering hockey, when he was hurt, what he hurt, or when anything might have started affecting his performance. But I do know that his performance hasn't been what it needs to be. And unfortunately, with the composition of this roster and with Ron Hextall having wasted too much money on third and fourth liners who are not at all effective, and thus handcuffing himself with a salary cap, you need Jarry to excel. I believe, as Mike Sullivan fairly does, that this team's going to score. This team's going to have X number of goals that they can bank on over the course of an 82-game season. There's just too many guys on this roster with too much of a history to not score. I also believe that this team can become dependable and diligent enough defensively that it can take care of business at both ends of the rink. But when you get to the playoffs, there's got to be that extra something. And it's not just going to be, let's go try harder, let's ramp up our game. There's got to be that extra variable that pushes you through to the next round. If you go back over the history of this team's 5 championships, you'll find something or someone like that in each round. And more often than not, even on the teams that were loaded with Hall of Famers, goaltending was one of, if not the biggest variables in there. This team, I believe that goes double for. Because as a lot of cynics have said about these Penguins, oh, they're just trying to do the same thing again with the same people. You know, definition of insanity and all that. Well, right, okay, I'm not going to argue that. But if your goaltender rises up, if he becomes somebody who is a top 3 or top 5 type of goaltender in the league, then you've got something there. Conversely, if he's bottom 3rd or bottom 4th or whatever it is, you're not even going to make the playoffs. You're not even going to participate in it. And then what? And then what? All I'm saying here, look, is not to sound the alarm, although I'm sure it sounds like it, and not to suggest that this team shouldn't be expected to make the playoffs. But there are no end arounds here. There's no back door. The Penguins need, for the millionth time, even just in this episode, Jarry to be his own best self. He doesn't need to instantly transform into Andrei Vasilevsky, Connor Hellebuck, whoever. He just needs to be what we saw for the dominant portion of last season. That's it. That's it. So whatever is required here, whether it's resting him to get him fully healthy again or having him play through it again without knowing what it is, it's hard to, make any kind of suggestions here. Got to get right, and got to get right in a hurry. You know who they're playing on the road this weekend? Marc-Andre Fleury and Hellebuck. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Bob, who asks, DK, my concern about old guys is not right now, but at the end of the season. My evidence is a seemingly annual first-round bounce from the playoffs. You yourself have repeatedly commented about resting key, or in this case, equivalent to old, players for games. Bob is referring, in case anybody missed yesterday's episode, to a segment that I did about trying to avoid pointing toward old guys this and old guys that every single time something goes wrong with this team. Jarry, for example, not an old guy. Jarry's still pretty young for a goaltender in the National Hockey League. And you're right, Bob, I can't have it both ways. I can't say on one hand you need to rest these guys, the old guys, in order to make sure that they're at their freshest and healthiest by the time the most important games come along, and then wag a finger at anybody who brings up old guys. So I'm going to see how I can squirm out of this since you have me cornered. And just say this, connecting it with today's opening segment, in saying that you need goaltending excellence on this team in order to build up the defensive confidence that you need to beat teams that maybe are a little bit faster, a little bit more energetic than you are in the long run and into the playoffs. I've been really, really consistent on this one thing, and that is that the Penguins need to be a team that principally shuts down their opponents and just allows the goals to come, as opposed to one that's just, in a free-for-all or a track meet. I don't think that's a thing that really too many people would debate. And then within that framework, I think it's easier to find a justification to rest a Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, even, someone like a Jeff Carter who's not going to be getting as much ice time. Now, that conversation always ends up being moot since none of that's going to happen. You can, and I suspect will, see Sullivan give these guys off days from practices, from skates, things like that, where he can find different ways to spell them, make sure that they're not playing in the third period of a blowout, or at least not that often, that sort of thing. That's some common sense approach that can be applied. You're not going to see him sit them for games or back-to-back games. It's just not going to happen. But all of this, Bob, all of it is predicated on being a good defensive team. And that obviously starts in the very back. So let's agree, if we can, that if that's in place, if the Penguins are a team that's capable of consistently shutting down the opponent, of performing at a peak level just in that facet, then they're a team that can take some liberties when it comes to resting and getting a little creative with different approaches. But got to get the goaltending. And I don't care if it's from Jarry or DeSmith, although obviously it would be nice if it was from Jarry. But first, they got to get him healthy and make sure that he's healthy instead of just throwing him out there like it seemed that they did the other night in Montreal. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll do another one of these tomorrow.